Welcome to this session of the Power Summit of Eurelectric, focusing on energy system integration, sponsored by PKEE, the Polish Electricity Association. Today, we will discuss how energy system integration can help us achieve decarbonization by 2030, by 2050 at EU level, as we have set very ambitious objectives to fight climate change. But what is energy system integration? It is a concept, but I have looked at the European Commission's communication last summer, and I can give you a few words as introduction. Sector integration means linking the various energy carriers, electricity, gas, hydrogen, heat, cold, between each other, but also to bring them to the end-use sectors, such as transport, industry, or buildings. It might sound a little bit theoretical, and this is the reason why we will spend the next 50 minutes discussing with our panelists and our high-level speaker what is energy sector integration, what benefits it will bring for decarbonization, but also for EU consumers and EU citizens, and what it means in terms of business model for the electricity sector. Our first speaker today is Mr. Adam Giborge-Czerwatynski, who is the Polish Undersecretary of State for Climate and Environment. He will explain what energy system integration means for a country like Poland, who has a different starting point in the energy transition and some specificities. Please, Mr. Giborge-Czerwatynski, the floor is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is my great pleasure to be here at today's seminar on sector integration and to address guests and participants of the Power Summit Conference. Poland is pursuing an ambitious energy transition and is committed to the EU achieving climate neutrality by 2050. Achieving climate neutrality is probably the most ambitious project the EU has had in years. The transformation it has launched will span many sectors of our economy. But energy plays a particularly important role in our climate efforts. Implementing the European Green Deal represents also one of the main pillars of the EU's recovery strategy. As we are working on kickstarting our economy after the crisis, we need to think already about making it greener. Against this backdrop, the transformation of the Polish energy sector and economy as a whole is one of the most ambitious undertakings of this type in the EU. You all know how much our today's energy mix relies on coal, and deep structural changes related to emission reductions in the energy sectors are indispensable. But we cannot afford the transition of this scale without taking social aspects into account. Poland will undergo massive changes in its energy system. The challenge is to build a new zero-emission energy system over the next 20 years. Earlier this year, the energy policy until 2040 we had proposed was approved by the Council of Ministers. The implementation of this strategy will put us on the path of achieving climate neutrality in accordance with the objectives of the Paris Agreement. The energy system will be crucial to deliver on the goals of the European Green Deal. And we can no longer work in silos. Instead, we need coordinated planning and to use the energy system as a whole across multiple energy carriers, infrastructures and consumers. This is the only way towards an effective, affordable and deeply decarbonized economy. The EU strategy for energy system integration bases on three main concepts. First of all, a more circular energy system with energy efficiency at its core. Secondly, a greater direct electrification of end-use sectors. And thirdly, the use of renewable and low-carbon fuels where direct heating or electrification are not feasible. And this is largely aligned with our own approach for the transformation of the Polish energy system. Indeed, the main goal of the Polish energy policy are obviously first to ensure energy security while at the same time safeguarding the competitiveness of our economy, improving energy efficiency, and above all, to reduce the impact of the energy sector on the environment. Future regulatory changes on the EU level should focus on creating synergies between the energy and other sectors, promoting system flexibility and enabling optimal and efficient use of the potential of existing infrastructure, while at the same time allowing for differentiated country objectives. In decarbonizing the Polish energy mix, we want to take advantage of the opportunities arising from the diversified sources, including renewable energy, nuclear energy, and in a transition period of natural gas. We see a great potential in electrification to help reduce emissions in many sectors. But for that to work without increasing energy poverty and without ruining the competitiveness of our industry, energy must be cheap. High electricity prices will reduce opportunities for electrification, undermine support for our policies, and could threaten the achievements of our targets. Decarbonizing our energy mix will also require a significant increase in renewable energy, and we need to adapt the energy system to that new reality. There is here as well a key role for energy system integration. For the transition of our energy system to be possible in Poland, what we urgently need is the expansion of the transmission and distribution infrastructure, more low-carbon, flexible generation sources, and the development of storage technologies. In this context, we should look into ways of speeding up investment in distribution and storage. For example, in the new 10E regulation, we should look at enabling the financing of projects serving the purpose of balancing the power system. A special role in the energy system integration will be played by the offshore wind energy. In Poland, we have quite a few large-scale projects in the pipeline. The potential for this technology is estimated at up to 11 gigawatts by 2040. However, intermittent renewable generation always requires a stable backup. And currently, there is no economically and technologically feasible low-carbon alternatives to natural gas and nuclear power. So Poland's position is that until an alternative technology becomes widely available, gaseous fuels should continue to be used, and in particular, when they replace highly carbon-intensive alternatives. From the Polish perspective, the energy system integration has to allow the development of bridging technologies such as natural gas, in particular in high-efficiency cogeneration. The gas network itself has an important role to play in the future, as it will be adapted to transmission and distribution of alternative fuels like biogas and hydrogen. Looking beyond natural gas, energy system integration needs to be based on innovation. Amongst innovative solutions which are already underway, the role of hydrogen is of great importance. Firstly, in terms of increasing the use of renewable energy and sources, and also improving the stability of the electricity system, as well as secondly, as a mean to reduce emissions in other sectors. Poland is already the third producer of hydrogen in Europe and the fifth in the world. And this is a great potential that you intend to use to take the lead in this relatively new emerging market in Europe on our way towards climate neutrality. We cannot forget that the cheapest energy is the energy that has not been used. And energy efficiency is one of the priority areas of the European Union strategy for energy system integration, and rightly so. And so is the Polish national approach. The national target for improving energy efficiency by 2030 has been set in Poland at 23%. The Green Deal and the goal of climate neutrality by 2050 will increase the importance and further investments required in energy efficiency. In addition, in Poland, we also see clearly the importance of DSR in the energy sector integration. This will provide businesses with new opportunities to optimize their operations based on flexibility services, while supporting at the same time the EU's energy security and our energy transition. Of course, the practical implementation of the energy sector integration and the transformation of our energy mix will also depend on our commitment to concrete actions and projects. And the European Commission has underlined that Poland will bear extremely high costs in this regard. The speed and depth of our energy transition will therefore also depend on our ability to mobilize the necessary resources. And in this regard, it is critical that all the resources generated by ETS installations in Poland are reinvested in the transformation of our economy. To sum up, I would like to underline once again that Poland is committed and determined to transform its energy sector towards climate neutrality. Energy sector integration will be a key element in achieving the European Green Deal goals, and we are determined to play an active part in it. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Giburgé-Czerwetynski, for this very clear statement, which sheds light on the role of energy system integration in a country like Poland. And certainly some interesting statements that we can touch upon in our panel. And this is a nice transition to welcome our panelists to discuss energy system integration more into details. And I am delighted to welcome on stage Mr. Paweł Straczynski, CEO of Tauron and member of the PKEE Management Board. Christian Rinning Tonnesen, President and CEO of Statkraft, welcome. Kerstin Andreae, who is the chairwoman of the Management Board of the BDEW, which is the German Association of Energy and Water Utilities, welcome. Daniele Agostini, who is the head of energy and low carbon policies at Enel, and Daniele is also the chair of the Eurelectric Committee for Electrification and Sustainability. Welcome on board, Daniele.
Thank you.
And Thomas Novak, Secretary General of the European Heat Pump Association. We are delighted to have you here, Thomas.
Hello.
And we will start immediately with a first round of questions, and I will address Mr. Paweł Straczynski. Paweł, what does it mean to have an integrated energy system? Why is it so important?
Yeah, energy system integration, as emphasized in EU strategy for energy system integration, means coordinated planning and operation of the energy system as a whole across multiple energy carriers such as electricity, heat, gas, infrastructures and consumption sectors. It should provide additional efficiency and also facilitate the decarbonization of sectors which are difficult to decarbonize. A truly integrated system should find synergies between all technologies which might be useful to achieve European goals. Electrification in all sectors will be important to boost decarbonization in Poland as well as in the whole EU. Thus, the electricity sector, including large companies, will play a major role in the system integration. Deployment of renewable energy sources is of key importance, particularly onshore and offshore, as well as PV power plants. Tauron assumes large investments in RES until 2025, additional 900 megawatt wind energy, 300 megawatt power PVs compared to 2018, and involvement in offshore projects on Baltic Sea. Moreover, Tauron is one of the leaders in the field of connecting distributed generation with 160,000 grid-connected micro installations and 1 gigawatt capacity. We believe that deployment of renewable on a large scale needs to accompanied by the parallel development of the infrastructure, especially at distribution level. Electricity can be used in multiple sectors, inter alia heating, transport and industry. That is why we need to ensure reliable and balanced energy system. The role of natural gas cannot be neglected in discussion on system integration. In the short and medium term, natural gas can bring a significant reduction of CO2 in member states highly reliant on coal. Gas as a transitional fuel will be necessary for countries like Poland to replace coal power plants in the production of electricity and heat. These investments might be used in the future for the purpose of combusting low carbon and zero emission gases, such as, for example, hydrogen. Within the discussion, I would like to draw particular attention to the energy storage technology that we are developing at Tauron. In light of the challenges associated with integrated energy systems, an interesting and increasingly important role can be vibrated by energy storage system. At Tauron, we notice opportunities in this technology, and as a part of research and development activities, we implement energy storage facilities that perform various functions in many fields. As obvious direction related to integrated energy system, in which energy storage plays a role in concern to the quality of energy. Storage invited for this application are also undertaken as part of research and development. An example may be the construction of the stationary energy storage system, the task of which will be to more efficiently manage energy received from wind farms, improve energy parameters, and stabilize the operation in the power grid. The investment of Tauron is being built in Cieszanowice, in the Opolskie Voivodeship. The essence of mentioned project is the creation of an energy storage system that, as a part of the distribution network, will effectively manage electricity obtained from wind farms.
Thank you very much. You touched upon many different issues, impressive figures on how you ramp up renewables, storage, the key role of electrification. You touched upon gas as well. So the feeling I get from your intervention is really that there is already a lot happening in terms of bringing decarbonized energy to various sectors and getting the flexibility as well to integrate more renewables. So we have some integration and cooperation across energy carriers and across sectors. But maybe the key question now is how do we really accelerate? And there I would like to turn to Christian Rennick-Tonnesen from Statkraft, please. How can we accelerate this integration of the energy system?
Thank you. In Norway here, it's already ongoing quite a lot of industrialization driven by the renewable energy system that we have in Norway here, thanks to a strong hydro system and a growing amount of wind power. So there is a number of projects ongoing with the industry. More than half of all new cars sold in Norway today are fully battery electric now. And the target is that all new cars sold by 4 years from now in 2025 should be fully battery electric. Also, in the shipping sector, a third of all passenger ferries by all the fjords in Norway will be emission-free with run on electricity or hydrogen by the end of next year. So it's going fast here. We are also looking into fossil-free domestic aviation. I believe what needs to happen here is in transport that electricity will be dominating wherever it is possible on ground transportation, but also hydrogen will play a role. In industry, it's special sectors that need some CO2 abatement. Also, a lot of electrification going on in the metal industry. Shipping will be dominated by electricity in short distance and green ammonia for long distance. And in the agriculture, also green ammonia produced from green hydrogen will be important in the future to decarbonize that sector. So the key measures I believe is needed here now is first to safeguard that the electricity markets are well functioning. We need the electricity for all these purposes, and it needs to be market-driven. Secondly, that the carbon pricing is further developed. The EU ETS system is very important. we need to have a price on what we want to avoid, namely climate emissions. Then should the expansion of certificates of origin, which already exists for electricity, should be expanded into other products like green hydrogen and green ammonia. So there are certificates of origin for all these products, so we can have a market-based system for emission-free energy in other parts of the energy sector than electricity. Also, demand needs to be stimulated partly by tax incentives that, like we have in Norway for cars, so that we can people buy what is the best option for them. And secondly, there are standards, for instance, requirements that a certain amount of ferries and purchasing in the public sector needs to be emission-free. Another point is to avoid subsidizing mature technologies while still supporting new technologies. As of today, I think bottom-fixed offshore windmills is about to be mature, while floating offshore is still immature, for instance. The latter needs support, the first does not. And finally, that the infrastructure is further developed, of course, in terms of a stronger grid for electricity, but also a common grid for hydrogen, and also a distribution system for fuels that are emission-free. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You already came into the very important policy recommendations. I picked up the importance of markets, of CO2 pricing as a key driver as well for low carbon technologies. And we will get back to this probably in the debate. Now turning to Kerstin and looking at what Christian just said, which basically touched upon on all sectors of the economy, why is it important to have an economy-wide approach to energy and decarbonization? Because in the past, we had a bit of a more silo approach where you had one energy carrier going into one sector and not much connection between them. And now we're moving to this sector integration approach. Why is it important to have this economy-wide concept and approach to decarbonization?
Yes, thank you. And thank you very much for organizing this interesting panel. I think the situation, as we all recognize, is that climate neutrality has become an overarching policy goal. So the US rejoining Paris Agreement, we have a recent US climate summit, the EU Green Deal sets new targets by decarbonization. And so it is very important to ask the question, how can we achieve these goals? And goal is, on the one hand, it's great to have good goals, but the other side is to have the projects to achieve these goals. And that is the question what we have to discuss. So when everybody from us supports these goals, I think that's really great, and we see an industry who supports these goals. But we need a framework condition must be created when we're adopting these energy and climate policy frameworks. So what can we do? And how can we secure, on the other hand, security of supply and affordability for all customers? So we have different, very important points that we have and issues what we have to add in this discussion. And sector coupling, sector integration means, as you described, all sectors must deliver. And how can we link electricity, heating systems, mobility systems, existing infrastructure, a decarbonization of industry? How can we link these different parts and to achieve the goals? The energy sector, as it's for its own, is very good in decarbonize and to mitigate CO2 emissions, because we phased out coal in a lot of countries. That's very important. We switch to renewable energies. That's very important to mitigate CO2. So how can we use this energy supply for the other sectors to mitigate CO2 emissions. And we are looking on transport, we are looking on building system, buildings, and we are looking on the industry sector. So industry sector, I think it's a hard to abate sector. We need other possibilities. And as Christian said, hydrogen is one of the important, that will play an important key role to decarbonize hard to abate industries. That is very important. In the mobility sector, we are talking about using direct electricity like electromobiles, and I think we all agree that using electromobile is only a good switch when we use it with renewable energies, not with coal energies. So it's important to look at the whole system. Energy system integration is essential to decarbonize all sectors while ensuring cost efficiency and security of supply, because we enable an increasing share of renewables in all sectors. We support the integration of the renewables in the sectors, and we can use the existing infrastructure. And here we have a discussion in Germany, but also in the European Union. And Pavel talked about a country where they phased out coal. They want to switch to. They need natural gas. They need natural gas. And in Germany, we have this discussion also. What will we do with our building sector? How can we supply heating in the future? We have a lot of apartments, and Thomas is later speaking from a very, very important pillar of a heating system. That's the using electricity directly in the buildings. But we have also the discussion, what is the usage of decarbonized gases? So we are talking about hydrogen, especially green hydrogen. But for green hydrogen, we need a boost of renewable energies. So we are talking also about blue hydrogen. How can we decarbonize all the sectors? And I think that it is important that we have an understanding that we need a lot of all to decarbonize it. We have not many time. 2050 is in 29 years. So we have not the time to look in one or in the other hand. We have to use all, and we have to make big efforts to decarbonize all the sectors we are talking about. So I'm very interested in following the discussion any longer. Bring all together. I think that's the biggest point in the actual situation.
Thank you. Thank you, Kerstin. We're talking about synergies of delivering decarbonization in a more efficient way. But Daniele, what does it mean really, these synergies, when we look, for example, at the energy consumer? Okay, from a system perspective, we manage to decarbonize in a more cost-effective way. But what does it mean for Europeans to have an energy sector integration? Do I get benefits from it?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I think the key term is synergies, as you rightfully point them out. And I think synergies are going to be the part that is going to allow us to upscale our action against climate change, to accelerate and try to fill the gap that we've accumulated in time. When we think about synergies, I think it is important, again, here to think outside the silos. So let's go back to the sustainable development, those pillars. We have synergies in terms of technology and economics. What is a real game changer here is actually we need to make sure that the same asset delivers more, that the same euro invested delivers more. And this is what is happening, for instance, with electric vehicles. Today, electric vehicles are means of transport, but are also batteries on wheels. So they're actually delivering more value to the customer, to the citizen of Europe. Same thing if we can think of as smart houses. As houses are going to get smarter, they're also not only going to be places where people can live, but they're actually going to be integral parts of the grid, providing storage, demand-side response. So again, we need to think more in this sort of interlinked way that goes across sectors and that is actually going to create value. There's a study by Adam Foundation that actually estimates that by 2030, if we coordinate across sectors, we actually have, instead of a net loss in value production, the production value, but we have instead a gain that ranges that is in the range of 100 to 150 billion euros in 2030. So quite concrete in terms of the economics. If you look at the environmental side, we also here need to start thinking of going across silos. Climate change is important, but we do know that European citizens have also other concerns at heart. Air quality. Air quality is really changing our way of life. It has played a role in the current pandemic. Circular economy with waste management, that also plays a very important role. So when we identify the areas in which we need to invest to accelerate the energy transition, we also need to think across silos of the environmental field. Our estimates with the NO Foundation, the same study that was mentioned before, is that decarbonization, the energy transition, can actually yield savings in the order of 1 to 3 billion euros in 2030 in terms of air quality protection. Today, the damages of deteriorating air quality are very significant. Heat pumps, electric vehicles can help us improve the air that our citizens are breathing today. And I'm not going to go through the numbers of the exposure of in urban areas of citizens to suboptimal standards. The third area, of course, is social. Social is really important. We're actually looking at an energy revolution. It's not going to be any more top-down, but it's going to be bottom-up. It's the famous 4 Ds: decarbonization, digitalization, decentralization, and most of all, democratization. Consumers need to be empowered, not anymore top-down. I receive my energy from somewhere far away, but actually I play a role in the energy space. I can consume when I want, I decide when to consume, and I decide when to produce. So that is also a very important synergy that we need to keep in mind in terms of the social impacts that are also there in terms of employment. We need to invest our resources in those areas where the most employment will be created. The same study estimates a net gain in 2030 of 1 million to 1.5 million units of labor in Europe. So again, let's think of those areas where that employment will be the highest. And again, I'm thinking of the heat pump, the building sector, and that's going to be the center of the recovery plan that Europe is about to validate. So again, synergies are there. We can reap them. We just have to be very pragmatic and think outside the silos. So climate is important, but let's also keep in mind the other issues that are heart of citizens: air quality, circular economy. I'm not going to mention energy efficiency first, of course. And again, we see a lot of electric technologies that can be very, very, very efficient. Thank you.
Thank you, Daniele. You described very well what could be the positive outcome for citizens. You talked about job creation. So I guess that if we get job creations, we should have some positive business models out there in developing, thanks to this energy system integration approach and decarbonization. But is it happening now? Do we have today the framework to have positive business models for sector integration solutions? Thomas?
Well, what a perfect opening. Thank you, Daniele. And I think I have a number of hooks that I could also relate to from my previous speakers. So thank you for these. Well, I thought about this, and the question that you ask is actually asking then also for why would you need that? If the system would run as it used to run in the past, you wouldn't need a new business model, right? Then it would just develop in a market-based economy and everything would be fine. But I think the basis for this is that we need, first of all, a product, then we need a regulation that makes this interesting, and then we need people that buy or use both of them. And if we start with a product, then we could say the society is completely heat pump ready or smart system ready or system integration ready because everybody has a fridge. It's the same technology as a heat pump. It would by principle be able to provide some flexibility, only it's not using enough electricity to make it meaningful. when it comes to heat pump, you could call this the bigger fridge, and we have now 14.6 million heat pumps installed in Europe. Last year alone, 1.6 million units were sold, and Kerstin is from Germany. Germany broke the record really in annual increase, because now they grew by 40%. More than 100,000 units are sold, and the German industry wants to triple this and even surpass France as the biggest market in Europe as we speak. I can also say some nice things about Norway, because Norway has the highest penetration when it comes to heat pumps installed per 1,000 households. So we have a significant number of units available that we could use, and they provide renewable energy efficiency, they reduce CO2 emissions, and they really meaningfully contribute to indoor air quality and also outdoor air quality, as Daniele mentioned so nicely. But they also provide, by principle at least, 1.5 to 4 terawatt hours of demand side flexibility on an annual perspective, right? So this is possible, and we could use them, but we are lacking the second point that I mentioned, and that's the regulation. We have the Electricity Market Design Directive in place, only the member states are very, very reluctant in implementing it. Germany being one of these countries that has not implemented yet that regulation, and so you cannot, or it's very difficult at least, to get a flexible electricity tariff to then use the flexible potential of a heat pump-based system to make an economic gain from it. And that's something that needs to be put into place. And I think that's why it's important to implement the regulation and the directives that we agree upon on the European level in order to make these business models realistic. And how would that look in detail? In the UK, they are a bit more advanced here. There's a number of providers of such systems where you can use the heat pump and typically they are connected to a storage. You can use that system to operate it at higher temperature levels. So for example, you would increase your temperature of your hot water tank to 90 degrees. You would increase your heating system, if it's a floor heating, to 31, 32 degrees. This is not impacting your comfort. But then if you know that the next day is going to be a very, very rainy day, and April lends itself to looking at, to imagining how this works. You have one day full of sunshine, the next day is raining cats and dogs, and then you just don't use your heat pump at all. So you switch on when you have a surplus, you switch off when you have a shortage. Very easy like that, but this needs to be translated into an economics system. And then you have either the end user benefiting from it, or you have aggregators that could offer, for example, heat as a service. And this not only works for single family houses, but it also works for multifamily buildings, it works for industrial applications, and it works for district heating. So I'm actually more positive that we can cover most of the heating demand in buildings in Europe with heat pumps. And of course, you would expect me to say that, but the technical development shows that it's by now possible. I leave it here for the moment.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. It was very good to go a little bit in the technical details and the concrete aspects of energy system integration. And it's actually a perfect transition to the next part of our panel discussion. I mean, we are about to have a huge legislative package coming probably on the 14th of July, I hear, the Fit for 55. How do we make the EU fit for achieving a 55% reduction of CO2 emissions by 2030? And of course, this energy system integration is somehow underlying this proposal as a way to achieve decarbonization and this 55% decarbonization in a more effective way. So we will spend a bit of time going into the different sectors. And when I asked around, okay, on which sector would you like to speak, I got a lot of excitement around the building sector. Everybody wanted to talk about buildings. And so I think an interesting question is how do we really ensure that consumers get the right incentives to choose decarbonized energy carriers for heating or cooling buildings, and to decarbonize the building sector in an energy efficient way? It's not so easy today. The options are not obvious to all consumers. So may I start with Pavel on this? How do we achieve decarbonization of the building sector with more energy integration?
It's, of course, nothing new and nothing revolutionary what I'm going to say. that reaching a climate neutral economy requires a significant contribution from all sectors. Please notice that European buildings are responsible for over 1/3 of the greenhouse gas emission. Therefore, the revision of the energy performance of building directive should provide improvements in the energy performance of all buildings. Dedicated tools, schemes, and supports should be developed to improve energy efficiency across all EU member states. The revision of EPBD should foster synergies provided by a closer integration with other sectors, primarily the energy one. I would like to emphasize that in energy sector, technology already highly efficient in use is a combined heat and power, CHP. And in Poland, there is a well-developed district heating system. Approximately 40% of households are connected to district heating networks. Moreover, cogeneration plants may achieve efficiency levels of around 90%, reducing primary energy consumption and at the same time significantly contributing to establishment of efficiency heating and cooling systems, providing clean districts heat to numerous end users. It seems to be reasonable to consider CHP in the EU as an effective solution to provide energy. Especially in the transitional period, the natural gas-based CHP might play an important role, what already was told many times, especially here in Poland. Investments in the fields of cogeneration could bring several benefits, such as improvement of air quality, cost efficiencies for final customers, and stability of energy and heating system. In conclusion, I believe that a level playing field will be ensured as we understand it as fair rules for all solutions which might provide cleaner energy in the efficient and at the same time the cost-effective way. We can do it only with a broad spectrum of solutions and technologies. Thank you.
Thank you. Some very interesting points there. And turning to Kerstin, could you tell us a bit more on how energy carriers could compete in an equal way in the building sector to ensure that we really reduce emissions in this sector? And same with renovation actions. How can we make sure that renovation actions really reduce CO2 emissions to achieve decarbonization?
Yes, thanks a lot. I think it's no surprise that everybody wants to talk about building sector and wants to show how we can decarbonize the sector, because it's really a huge challenge. And it depends on the welfare of everybody. It depends on the question of a warm apartment. And so that's not a surprise for me. And it's really, really important to have a look how we can decarbonize this sector. I think, first of all, building renovation is a priority. We have a renovation wave from the European Union expecting 2% renovation rate per year. That's really great. And I talked last year with the GD, and she said that the projects by IPCEI, there are many projects looking for a renovation. And so she's really she's not concerned that they can reach the 2%, but it's strong. 2% is strong because you need a lot of people who will do this. And in Germany, especially, we have a problem about the staff for renovation. So we need to do more in this way, but building renovation is a priority. 2% a year means that we need many years to renovate all the buildings. So heat pumps, as a second, is really an efficient technology. And as Thomas said, I think there is really a possibility for disruptive developments, that we can see much better heat pumps, that they can heat better apartments. At the moment, we have a big problem that we need really a good apartment, a good building, and then we need an efficient building. So they are an important part for the heating system, but it's not the only part. Heat pumps increase the maximum grid loads. We have really a problem because you need, as you described, we need the heat pumps, or we need the heating system in a few weeks a year. Not the whole year, especially in a few weeks a year. In Germany, you call it Dunkelflaute. But you have a few weeks a year, and then you have a problem with the Dunkelflaute because there is no sun and there is no wind. So you need big maximum grids for these years. The third point I want to make is the green district heating. That's very important in Germany, a very important usage. And you need for this also hydrogen, that you can make it renewable in the future. It's a very important pillar of our heating system, is the green district heating. And the third one is the decarbonizing natural gas. And we in Germany, we have most of 500,000 kilometers gas grids in the ground, and they can be adapted to hydrogen. And I want to show that we have 42 million apartments. We have 500,000 natural gas grids in the ground. We need all. And we need also the decarbonized gas for our heating system in the future. I don't want to be in a competitive between the different pillars, because it's not useful. What we need is every pillar to build a renewable and a decarbonized heating system in the future. And the gas system offers a large potential for transportation and storage of renewable energy, and we should take this also into account. So we have 3 pillars: one of the building, the district heating, the renewable, the decarbonized gases. We have to look for the different regions. It's an urban region or it's a rural region. We have to look for the social situation of the tenants and the landlords. We have many different points we have to take into account, and then I think we have a vision of the decarbonized heating system for the future.
Thank you, Kerstin. Christian, I think you raised your hand, and then I will hand over to Thomas, of course.
Yes, I just want also to support that we need a varied energy system also for building heating and cooling. I think in Norway we have about 80% of all buildings run on electricity only now when it comes to heating, and we are a cold country. And heat pumps are being installed big scale. But also the district heating systems that we are working hard to decarbonize those by carbon capture systems and then storing the carbon in the ground. And these can be carbon negative since quite a few are fueled by waste and organic material that quickly grows in the forests again, so that it's renewable by origin. It's also needed a bit stick, so to say, carrot and stick. There is a stick as well, and the stick in Norway is that public sector is not allowed to use fossil fuels anymore for heating of buildings since last year. So a combination of regulations in a positive sense, stimulations to heat pumps and district heating, but also some regulations starting with the public sector and then going private sector afterwards to restrict use of fossil fuels for the heating of buildings.
Thank you. I hear that there is a need for a diversity of solutions, depending on the buildings, depending on the resources that you have in different regions. But maybe let me come back to electrification and the heat pump question, because I would like to ask Thomas to react to this statement by Kirsten that, you know, you have if you have a heating system based on heat pumps, it consumes a lot of electricity for a few weeks a year in winter when you don't have renewables, and then it doesn't work out. Could you react to that, Thomas, as the main advocate in town for heat pumps?
Yes, I am very happily reacting to that, even though I would say that Daniele and also Christian can probably fact-based answer that question much better than us. What we have done as a back-of-the-envelope calculation, of course, we have also calculated that. We have calculated what would it mean if 75–80% of Europe's buildings would be heated by heat pumps. And it will, of course, increase electricity. It will not increase energy demand altogether. So the important point here is to answer, where do we need all these different solutions? And while I'm not saying that heat pumps will solve all the problems, I'm quite confident, and I hope to experience that myself, being alive at that time, that the majority of Europe's heating will come from heat pumps because they have inherent benefits. They provide these heating and cooling at the same time, which is very nice for moderate climates. You invest only once, and even in Germany now, you like to have more comfort in summertime. Solutions from a technology perspective, the last 5 years have improved the readiness for heat pumps for many more buildings. You can now provide 70 degrees centigrade. Sorry for going into this detail, but it's so important to mention that you can renovate a house with actually rather limited amount of investment and still make it heat pump ready, make it electrifiable, we could call it. And then if you want an electric car on top of it, you will have a new cable anyhow. So I'm an economist. I would ask myself, where do we want to invest? And is it not better to start with renovation? Of course, renovate more in the least performing buildings, as the renovation wave communication is foreseeing. Then electrify the hell out of the rest. And those parts where you can't do that, then we still have thermally driven heat pumps that are more efficient. We have hybrid systems. But my perception, this will be a very, very small part of the energy system. And it was mentioned by Pavel that, yes, district heating and also green district heating and CHP, I do think they have a role. But is it, and I'm just asking that, is it that not more interesting to put the CHP units on an upper level? And I would say maybe that's better there than on an individual building. And then you also have grid stability, and you have the waste heat for the district heating. And by the way, district heating, large heat pumps is the biggest growth segment that I can talk about. This would go too far, but we are selling 1 megawatt and upwards heat pumps by the dozen at the moment. The latest one, 50 megawatt heat pump in Esbjerg in Denmark, which will be used also for demand-side flexibility. So again, we have this opportunity to integrate the two sectors and to do it in a very efficient manner.
Thank you. It was a very interesting discussion on buildings, and I would like maybe to swiftly make the link to the transport sector. We will not have time to discuss every sector, but buildings, transport, we have in the strategies for buildings and energy efficiency something around charging points that need to be available more and more in the building stock. To connect it to the transport sector, and especially the electric transportation. Maybe I would turn to Daniele here. How can we make the transport sector a central node of the energy system integration? Can it be connected to buildings, to industry? How can we bring various energy carriers? And, well, it's a long question, but what would you expect from the Fit for 55 package on this?
Yeah, thank you. And again, I think we need to think outside the box. And I think Thomas was going in that direction. You know, in the previous round, you know, you were asking, how can we heat our buildings? I mean, the future is not how do we heat our buildings, is how do we provide comfort, the comfort that people need in those buildings. And it can be through, something that heats it, something that ensures that the right level of humidity is there, whether it's that the envelope is, the heat pump or, a boiler, I don't know. Let's keep in mind that, again, the world is getting warmer. We have heat waves in England, you would have never thought about it. And so they may need some cooling in the summer. So again, It's a comfort service. And the same thing is for cars and transport. It's not anymore about cars, but it's about transport services. So on one hand, you have this technology revolution that has seen that the cost of batteries go down by 85% in the last 10 years. And that's already something that it's amazing. Manufacturers, just 65% of EU market share of the manufacturers that have 65% of EU market share are actually tearing their business plans apart and going electric. So there you have a technological shift. But then again, you have to think of the business models and how they're changing. And if we look at those business models, again, we have batteries on wheels providing demand-side response. We have increasingly the idea of connected vehicles, autonomous transport. People are going to be changing from mode to mode, from a roller to an electric bicycle to an electric car. They'll be looking for services. We made some estimations, and up to the utilization rates of vehicles is going to double by 2050 because of these new business models. So we're going to be having big companies leasing the cars, providing these services, playing with the grid, vehicles to grid. At the same time, again, we're changing completely the mindset at home. As Thomas was saying, as a utility, we're focusing on how we sell a full package to our residential customers in terms of electric vehicle charging, heat pump management, solar generation, but also storage in the building. That is, again, looking at the energy revolution, top-down consumer empowerment, and that is really important. If we only look, without being too aggressive, and again, we did some simulations with Compass Lexicon Data and a foundation, we actually see that by 2050, out of 400 gigawatts of flexibility, 270 gigawatts, so almost 3/4, will be batteries. And of these batteries, 40 gigawatts of batteries will be on wheels. And so again, this gives you the sense of how important the energy sector will be, the transport sector will be playing in this area. So important, the volumes are there. Keep in mind, we're talking about pretty quick turnaround of assets. So in that sense, that's why you see a lot of these car manufacturers moving in this space very quickly. We had Tesla move in rapidly in the very beginning. We have more established players that have understood where the wind is blowing. As Ena, we're being very active in partnering with these players. We are partnering with BMW, Daimler, Ford, Volkswagen, and Hyundai in their Ionity company, where we're looking at interoperability. So again, it's a service. It's not anymore a good. The last week or 10 days ago, you saw the big initiative with VW. So again, it's a space that is moving extremely fast that needs to be really focused on. Again, it's technologies that are here. You don't need to have a vision. You don't need to have a dream, the car that is not there. It's the car that is here. You have a demand by member states. A lot of member states, Portugal, France, United Kingdom, are going to phase out conventional cars. They're going to need an alternative. The alternative this year is electric, and it's already being deployed all over. So it's a question of how we accelerate it. How do we accelerate the deployment of zero-emission transport? Is through infrastructure. The market is providing the solutions, both on the demand side and on the supply side. What we need is the infrastructure. So again, we need the infrastructure in terms of recharge points, EPBD. We need the infrastructure also in terms of encouraging smarter entities like the smartness building indicator in the EPBD. We need to make sure that there's a real acceleration in the way the infrastructure is adapting to the new technological context, but also to the new social context. Just keep in mind, and I'll finish here, smartphones. You can have a beautiful smartphone that goes in 5Gs, but if the infrastructure is not there, you can't use it. So we do not want to frustrate our future customers. We don't want to frustrate the European citizens by lagging behind with the upgrade of the infrastructure.
Thank you, Daniele. And Christian, I mean, electric mobility is happening in Norway. What do we need to do in the rest of the in EU to make it happen at such a pace? What are your recommendations?
Yes, as I said, just 4 years from now, we expect all new cars for normal passenger traffic in Norway to be fully electric. And we are a cold country in the far north with a lot of mountains. I drive an electric car myself, no problem in the mountain areas. So it's fully doable. And if we can do it in Norway, it can be done in more or less any country. But it's a big effort. It took several years from when we had like 1% of the cars being electric to when it became 10, and then it steeply rose to 50, 60 as it is now. I think what is needed is charging points, as it was said. Of course, it needs to go in parallel with ensuring that the electricity is emission-free, dominantly renewable, but still some nuclear there. All in all, the charging of electric cars is going to be massive in all countries in the future, according to our estimates. In Germany, we expect the amount of megawatt needed to charge the cars is the same as the double of all other electricity demand in Germany altogether. But it's, of course, in a short period of time. So it's not equal to the double of all electricity demand, but it's the double of megawatts. So we think that the day-night swing of demand could easily be handled by the combination of a future renewable system and batteries and flexible demand driven by IT systems. We still have a problem that Kristin talked about in the weeks in the winter time when there's no wind and no sun. So there will be some weeks, arbitrarily depending on from one year to the other when it is, that we need something else. So we still need a backup of the gas-fired or the possibly hydrogen and gas-fired capacity for some weeks. But then we are close to zero emission in the total electricity system, but we need that backup. So my advice when it comes to transportation is a combination of tax incentives. It doesn't mean that it should be less taxation on cars. It should just be more on fossil and less on electric cars to switch demand. That has worked in Norway. And support for a quick rollout of charging.
Thank you very much. Kerstin, would you like to add something on transport so that we wrap up this part of the panel on the various sectors? I'm afraid we will not have time to dig into industry too much. And then I would like to ask you each what is your key recommendation for the Fit for 55, but please, Kerstin.
I think only one thought. In Germany, we have really a market at the beginning of the electromobiles. But I think we have an understanding that we are talking about a system. It's not only a change, it's not only another car, it's a system, it's a change in a system. You have a car, you have a charging system, you have the grids, you need the renewable energies. So we have to change our mind using electric mobility. And that's very important, that's very, the discussion in Germany is not as strong as it could be. We have a very interesting situation that the mobility sector, the car builders, they go ahead to produce now electric mobiles. Not the policy; it's the industry who goes forward, and that's really interesting.
Thank you, Kerstin. Thanks a lot for these interesting discussions on transport and on the building sector. I would like to conclude this panel. We have 2 minutes left with a quick round where you would answer this question. What is your one key recommendation to EU policymakers or national policymakers to make energy system integration a reality as part of the upcoming Fit for 55 package? So please, 20 seconds each, your one key recommendation, starting with Pavel.
So in my opinion is just to keep the broad spectrum of technologies on board to contribute to the successful transition. I mentioned many times before, for Poland is very, very important in the taxonomy, in delegated act, that we can use as a transition fuel the neutral gas, and at the end, as a sound of the future, as a fuel of the future, maybe hydrogen, maybe methanol, maybe ethanol, we don't know yet, but to secure quite quickly, quite efficient, the Polish energy transition, the usage of neutral gas, it's absolutely number one, it's absolutely necessary to reduce our emissions and then to achieve the zero neutral energy system. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pavel. So technology diversity to achieve decarbonization, if I summarize in my 15 seconds. Thank you. Christian, your final words?
My one advice is to introduce an EU-wide certification system for all types of energy in terms of being emission-free. That goes for hydrogen, green ammonia, and so on, in addition to electricity. We need it to get to net zero. Thank you.
Thank you. Kerstin?
Yes, I think we need an expansion of renewable electricity production combined with a cross-sectoral carbon pricing system. That's, for me, the key role for efficient sector integration.
Thank you. Daniele?
Well, I'll focus on your term reality, something now. So I think, it's important to have visions on technologies that are beautiful or out in the future, but we need to focus on what is available today, be very pragmatic. So technologies that are mature, ready for deployment, technologies that are resilient, that can survive change in a world that is changing fast. In our sector, we've had too many stranded assets creating left and right. So we need technologies that are resilient, and then especially technologies that yield multiple benefits, not only climate change, but also benefits that consumers can also, and citizens can touch tomorrow, the day after tomorrow. So air quality, waste reduction. So again, pragmatic in looking at technologies in terms of maturity, resilience, and multiple benefits.
Thank you. And the concluding recommendation, Thomas?
I pick up with what Daniel said. We have to start now. We have more technologies than we think. We need to increase the renewable share. And in order to do that, we need, and that's my recommendation, a CO2 price signal in order to integrate, internalize the external effects of fossil fuel use. And then, but that's related to it, we have to implement what we agree. If high ambition comes out of the 55% package, we have to make sure, the Commission has to make sure that this is afterwards also implemented. And with this, I'm pointing directly to the Electricity Market Design Directive, where this has been lagging. And that we can't afford.
Thank you. Thank you all for an exciting discussion. We've touched upon many topics, but I hope that the audience now gets a clear view on what is energy system integration and what is needed to accelerate, especially as part of the upcoming Fit for 55 package. Thank you all, and see you soon, hopefully. Bye-bye.